Hello and welcome to PocketGamer.biz's weekly news roundup. This is for the week ending the 5th of December 2014. So we're coming to the end of the year, so I guess kind of big news stories you kind of think will be tailing away, and we get to the stage now where we're kind of looking back at the year in review, which is certainly something we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. But there was still some news kind of bubbling around kind of this week. So a few kind of interesting things. Companies getting funding still. So there's a company called Space Ape, who I guess are not particularly that well known. They're a London-based developer. A lot of them came out of EA's Playfish Studios when that kind of got scaled down. So they're guys who've known free-to-play games pretty well. Playfish being famous for its Facebook games. And what they've done is kind of interesting. So they have a game called Samurai Siege, and it's kind of one of those games that could be put in that kind of tub named kind of Clash of Clans clone. So however you want to call those, which is not to kind of be rude about it particularly. I mean, clearly it's a strategy game that's been based on the success of Clash of Clans, and to a degree you can look at it and go, well, it's a Clash of Clans but with samurais, and you build your bases and you build armies of samurais and you go and destroy other people's bases. But the interesting thing is, so one advantage that these guys got, they built a pretty nice game, looks good. They went onto Android very quickly, onto Android pretty much before Clash of Clans was. Obviously Supercell were quite late to Android. The other thing that when talking to them about that game is they were much tried to rethink how alliances work. So they kind of almost not quite forced you, but pretty much forced you into alliance very quickly into that game, because they obviously realised that getting people into alliances is a big kind of knock-on effect for engagement and retention and monetization, all those kind of things. So that game's been pretty successful. Obviously not Clash of Clans type successful. It's not doing $1 billion a year, but they're saying they've done kind of $20 million in a year, which is not bad for a startup. And they've just raised another $7 million. They have a second game coming out called Rival Kingdoms. Again, kind of in the strategy kind of genre, it's a bit more fantasy. But again, alliances or kind of how kind of groups of players playing together is a key aspect of that. That'll be out next year, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go with that. And with their £7 million, they're going to be dollars. They're going to be kind of user acquisition and hiring and kind of building up their studio into a bigger studio. So it's kind of I guess a success story for London, the UK, which we haven't seen too many companies really other than Natural Motion who've made a success of free-to-play games. So it's kind of good to see at least. So looking at kind of other things going on. One thing that we looked at in our charticle this week, so we've had some big games launching. I guess the most successful big game to launch the last couple of weeks is Candy Crush Soda Saga. Sure, I should say that's my Freudian slip, suggesting that actually that game is obviously something that people who played Candy Crush are being kind of pointed towards. And actually going to be massively successful. So if you look pretty much in all the major markets, it's gone out and it's gone top 5 top grossing, which is obviously massively successul. Partly because King has a stack load of money for user acquisition, partly because everyone knows Candy Crush Saga. So it's kind of like a double whammy. That's clearly a franchise that's massive, $1 billion franchise, multi-billion dollar franchise. One of the things I guess we look back for in 2014 in review, a lot of people are talking about. It's clearly been a year where the top grossing charts have been pretty static. Not much has kind of entered into those charts. Argument the only game really to make an impact is Kim Kardashian Hollywood from Glue. Clearly that's a branded game. And it kind of seems, there's an argument going around now, is original content, can that break through now, just because it costs so much to launch user acquisition-wise, and it could just kind of hard to break into a market that's quite mature. So we were looking at this game that came out. It's been massively pushed by Apple, which is kind of interesting. So it's called Vainglory. So it's a MOBA. We've kind of seen over the last year, lots of kind of MOBAs been attempted on mobile. Nothing's really stuck. This is the kind of a studio, super evil megacore, good name for a studio, isn't it? But they're kind of like a startup from San Francisco, very well funded. Actually funded with some of the people who were involved with Playfish. That's kind of square in the circle there. And they've made a really nice game. It's a MOBA, so it's appealing to a certain group of kind of players. So they're trying to take some of the kind of that PC market, that kind of League of Legends market. It's designed from the ground up. They say for touchscreen. I mean, everyone kind of says that. But equally designed for kind of LAN style play. So obviously not on LAN, you're wireless, but it's designed so people who are playing the game can play kind of together in a room, so you kind of have your kind of 3x3 kind of match going on there, But the interesting thing there is even they've not really spent a lot of money on user acquisition yet, to be fair to them, but they had massive push by Apple. They've been in lots of adverts. They've been on the keynote for Apple. They've been pushed as a kind of high-end tablet game because it looks so good. And really, download-wise, they've done okay, but top grossing, it's hard to say. They've only been out for a month, not even that. But they haven't really made an impact, not even top 200 yet. So I think that will be kind of something we'll keep looking back on. You know, can companies who are being pushed by Apple, who do have a lot of money for user acquisition, okay, you could argue that MOBAs are a niche kind of audience. There's a certain type of guy who's going to play a MOBA, not the kind of person who's going to play Candy Crush Saga necessarily. But that's kind of the tension that I think is going on in the mobile world at the moment. Yeah, a few other things to talk about, and actually a good kind of follow-on to that is our stateside columnist Carter Dotson. Always interesting to read. He has a kind of different take on what's going on, and I guess everyone at the moment is still kind of mobile's growing, and mobile is growing, so that's fine. You know, whatever we are, how many is it $30 billion industry or something? I don't know. Certainly, the predictions are it will be that way by kind of 2020. But Carter's kind of taken a contrarian view, which I quite like. Contrarian views, always kind of good to get thinking the other way around. And he's saying, in his latest column, you know, will mobile just rise and rise? So obviously mobile games have kind of exploded a bit out of nowhere. Obviously there was mobile gaming to a degree before smartphones came in and before particularly kind of iPhone and iPod came in. But the kind of mobile games have exploded kind of partly as a byproduct. So people always had phones, and now they had phones that could do other computing type things on them and play games in a much more natural way than you had when you had Java phones. So kind of gaming was a kind of a byproduct of a technological change that happened generally. It wasn't something, you know, certainly Steve Jobs didn't think, I'm going to make an iPhone, everyone's going to play games on it. I mean, obviously the whole thing of Apple have been kind of pretty anti-games their entire lifestyle. Certainly Steve Jobs was pretty anti-games. So kind of Carter was kind of saying, well, you know, could stuff happen to phones that make them kind of less liable for people to play games on them? And, you know, if phones go to smartwatches, how would that change the way people play games? Would it monetize less? Equally, there's an argument that kind of we've had these big brands. So we've had Candy Crush, we've had Clash of Clans, we've had Puzzle and Dragons in Japan, and these have been massive billion-dollar kind of franchises. But what we've kind of seen, as we've discussed before, is we've just had lots of clones around. So match-free, everyone's just doing a match-free type game. Everyone's doing like a strategy type game. So we're kind of seeing not a lot of originality. Originality isn't being supported in the charts, and it's not being supported by audience spend. So potentially we have this situation where the clones are cloned, and the audience just goes, well, I've played this kind of game before, I'm not so interested. So your spending could go down, or you could have technological change. So obviously we don't know what's going to happen yet, but it's kind of an interesting kind of contrarian view to the fact that mobile games will continue to rise forever and ever. And I guess something I'm particularly interested in, and something that another of our columnists, Spanner Spencer, was talking about this week, was looking at wearables. So I'm quite keen on wearables. Clearly, they have a big kind of fitness health kind of aspect. That will probably be their killer application. Gaming will be a byproduct of that. So maybe we kind of have a hope that wearables will be big, because there will be some interesting kind of game products that will come off that, and that will be a new market for us. But the big issue for wearables really is they're going to cost. I'll say the Apple Watch is going to be, you know, more than probably $250 plus dollars. Most of the wearables now are about $250, that kind of price range for something kind of half decent. And clearly people aren't going to buy that. You know, the geeks will. You know, early adopters will buy that, but clearly the mass market isn't going to buy a wearable probably. Not going to drop kind of £200, $250, $300 on that kind of thing. Just for the sake of it. So kind of Spanner was looking at what business mechanisms could there be that could kind of drive take up of wearables. And one of the things he was looking at, which is something I have talked about before as well, is kind of will the insurance industry, will they somehow subsidise them? Will it be that kind of particularly in the States where obviously healthcare is kind of funded by health insurance. So could your health insurance company either say get a wearable and we'll knock off money from how much you pay us, or could actually they just basically go anyway? You know, we'll give you a smartwatch, use it. We can track your kind of movements. We can see kind of to a degree how healthy you are, and that will have a knock-on effect. And potentially, I mean, you know, who knows? But potentially that could kind of really drive wearable usage, which I think probably is something kind of everyone wants to see. But it's kind of like that. That's one for next year, I guess. Wearables and more mobile games continue to explode. And if you want to find out about that kind of stuff, obviously Pocket Gamer Connects London, which is our next conference, which is the 13th and 14th of January in London. It's the kind of stuff we're covering, so come along, hope to see you there.